Mr. Chairman, I observe that the people of Yuma are good folks, and they deserve a lot better from the federal government than they have been getting. And whether or not they'll get it depends heavily on the House of Representatives, and particularly this group, and whether or not we will fight for them. We don't have a single Democrat that we could even convince to come to this briefing to get evidence from these experts. You think we're going to get President Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer to pass legislation without a fight, without demanding that it go in must-pass bills, and we have to use every bit of leverage, or this is a deeply unserious exercise. Now, Dr. Trenchel, about 1 in 4 of the migrants who use birthing services at your hospital need neonatal intensive care unit services, NICU, right?
That is true, yes.
And that rate, 1 in 4, is way higher than with the non-migrant population, right?
Very much higher,
and you got about 20 beds at any given time.
Correct.
And they fill up sometimes, don't they?
Yes, they do.
And so when you have those beds that are full up because of the pressure of these migrant communities, where do you have to send the residents of Yuma when they have a baby that needs NICU?
We would have to fly them to Phoenix or another venue.
And that's 170 miles away.
Yes, it is.
There are few prayers that I have ever seen more sincere and deeper than the prayers of parents when their little babies are at the NICU. And for all the folks on the left who want to lecture to us about how humane an open border is, there is nothing humane about putting a parent on a 170-mile journey when they need NICU services. Supervisor Lyons, we hear Secretary Mayorkas come to us all the time on the Judiciary Committee and testify that the most important partnerships above all else for the Department of Homeland Security are the partnerships with local officials. We hear it time and again. And so here is my simple question for you. Has Secretary Mayorkas ever lied to you?
Yes.
And what was the substance of that lie?
So the mayor and I had the opportunity to visit with Secretary Mayorkas and the Yuma Sector Chief, as well as the Chief of the entire Border Patrol at Sector Headquarters almost a year ago. And during that meeting, he committed to, after reviewing the border, both from the ground and the air, to specifically address, quote unquote, 9 of the 11 Yuma gaps.
And how many of those gaps have been addressed?
To date so far, none. We see infrastructure on 2, and yet they will not deter anyone.
Yeah. This is my 4th time here with you. I think
yes,
if I come any more often, I'm going to be eligible to vote in Yuma.
Thank you for coming back, Matt.
But in these
District
circumstances, it seems as though it's not a great mystery where the pressure points are, where we have gaps in the wall, and where we have recalcitrant tribes. And so in those circumstances, should we observe that this is a lack of capability or a lack of will to go and plug those holes?
A lack of will. We've followed up multiple times, as well as Yuma Sector Border Patrol staff and with undersecretaries, and we were told time and time again that they were issuing contracts, that we would have it no later than June of last year, then no later than September, then no later than November. Every time it kept getting pushed out.
So would a reasonable person observe that this is on purpose?
My wife says I'm not a very patient person, but I was patient every time that I called, and they continued to push this process out. It's not reasonable.
Well, the American people are losing their patience. We ought to be losing ours. And while we greatly appreciate the 3 of you being here to answer our questions, the day will come soon when Secretary Mayorkas has to come and answer our questions. And to my colleagues, if he'll lie to Mr. Lyons and lie to the community here, then he will lie to us and he will lie to the American people. And that's why I'm very proud to co-sponsor Representative Biggs' articles of impeachment against Secretary Mayorkas, because this is not a lack of ability, it is a lack of will. Mr. Lyons, I'll give you the last word.
Mr. Gaetz, thank you very much. And to what Mr. McClintock was saying, as far as the cartel violence, over the last 14 months, the sheriff and I have been made aware of over 200 assassinations in San Luis Rio, Colorado, where the cartels are targeting law enforcement. This last weekend we had another officer shot, and then retribution the following night. So when you talk about that violence, it's here at our border. They are in control, and we want to take our control, our border control back. And we need an administration that has the will to secure our borders. And that's what we're asking you to do. And I thank you very much for being here.
Mr. Chairman, my time's expired. I'll yield back.
I thank the gentleman from Florida. Now I recognize the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Tiffany.
Thank you very much. Let me follow up on that. Sheriff, do you believe the United States government has control of the border here with Mexico?
I believe that we are trying, and our Border Patrol partners are trying very hard. But the cartels are the ones that are creating the narrative and controlling the activities all along the 2,000 miles of international boundary.
Do you have the ability to identify migrants who are inadmissible to the United States for criminal reasons or prior deportations?
We do not have access to that.
Is ICE or CBP actively assisting you in processing the migrants in your charge?
In the law enforcement aspect, we work with them quite a bit in regards to those that are in my jail. As far as the immigration side, that is something that is not in our wheelhouse. I can tell you that because of their constraints, that I've actually cross-deputized our federal partners in the different entities to be able to seek state charges against individuals that the U.S. Attorney would not charge for crimes.
Have you had, say that last part again.
The part in regards to the United States Attorney not wanting to charge an individual for a crime, then I've cross-deputized them so they could take that case to a county attorney to get prosecution.
Have you had any detainers issued by ICE for migrants in your facilities?
Yes, I have.
As a result of the illegal migration coming across our border, are they harming the environment?
Absolutely. The vast amount of trash, pharmaceuticals, garbage, clothing that's being dumped along our river corridor has been astronomical, and the impacts for our farmers in their fields as well.
When we had a hearing just a couple weeks ago, we had a Judge Samaniego from, I believe, El Paso and Sheriff Daniels on the panel, and they had very divergent statements to say in regards to fentanyl, that the reason for fentanyl, the expansion of its use in our country and the devastating consequences, was not because of the border being open. That was the case being made by Judge Samaniego. Sheriff Daniels said that it is a result of the borders being opened over the last couple of years that fentanyl use and its migration into the United States has gone up exponentially. Who's correct?
I would tend to support Sheriff Daniels' statement in regards to that. And I would agree with his statement as well.
So you've seen, are you saying you've seen the same thing as Sheriff Daniels in Cochise County?
We have seen the same type of activity where individuals were recruited to come and pick up individuals that had entered this country illegally between a port of entry and come to pick them up because it's a money-making adventure. And they've also been found to be in possession of narcotics, too, at the same time.
Has Secretary Mayorkas secured the border?
No.
I just have one further question and a final statement, Mr. Chairman. To Dr. Trenchell, do any of the NGOs out there, non-governmental organizations, have they compensated you for any of the uncompensated care that you're providing for migrants?
No, they have not. We've not received any compensation from anyone.
Thank you. I'm just going to close with this. You know, folks, set aside, we've had the most number of people that are on the terror watch come across our border in the last couple of years in the history of the United States of America. You can set aside the human trafficking. You have the largest, your United States government via the Biden administration is running perhaps the largest human trafficking, or complicit in perhaps the greatest, biggest human trafficking operation in the history of the world, along with the cartels, along with the International Organization of Migration, a United Nations outfit, and others. Set those things aside. Just fentanyl alone should be a national emergency in America, and I can't believe we do not have colleagues on the other side of the aisle that are not here today, and even if they're not here today, that are not calling for the same thing that we're calling for. At a minimum, secure the border to stop the fentanyl, or at least reduce the amount of fentanyl coming into America that has made every state, including my state of Wisconsin, a border state. I yield back, Mr.